I'm Charlie Munger. I'm 99 years old and I'm about to die. Not today, maybe not tomorrow, but soon. That's just mathematics. And before I go, there are things you need to hear. Things I wish someone had told me when I was sitting where you are right now. Young, ambitious, and making mistakes I didn't even know were mistakes yet. I've made billions of dollars. I've lived through 18 recessions, 4 major wars, and more market crashes than I can count. I've watched fortunes made and lost. I've seen brilliant people destroy themselves and average people build empires. And after 99 years on this planet, I've learned something most people never figure out. Success isn't complicated. It's just hard. See, everyone wants the secret formula. They want me to tell them which stocks to buy, which businesses to start, which shortcuts to take. But that's not how it works. There are no shortcuts. There's only principles, simple principles that most people know but refuse to follow because they're boring, they're slow, and they require patience that nobody wants to have. But here's the thing. These principles work. They worked for me, they worked for Warren, and they'll work for you if you're smart enough to listen and disciplined enough to actually do them. So let me tell you what I wish I had known at your age. Not theory, not textbook nonsense, real wisdom, expensive wisdom, the kind that cost me decades and millions of dollars to learn, because time is running out for me. But for you, you still have time, and that's the most valuable thing you'll ever own. Before we go deeper, tell me something. Where are you watching from right now? Drop your city in the comments. I want to know who's listening to a 99-year-old man talk about patience and mistakes. And if you haven't subscribed yet, do it now. We're building something here, a community of people who want to think clearly, act wisely, and avoid the stupid mistakes that destroy most people. No gimmicks, no get-rich-quick garbage. Just real wisdom from someone who's actually lived it. Hit that subscribe button. Then, let's continue. I have an IQ somewhere around 160. Warren's is probably similar. And you know what? That's not why we're rich. I know plenty of people with high IQs who are broke. I know plenty of brilliant people who've made terrible decisions. Intelligence is like horsepower in a car. It's useless if you don't know where you're going. What matters isn't how smart you are. What matters is how you think. And most importantly, what you avoid thinking about. When I was your age, I thought being smart meant having all the answers. Now I know being smart means knowing which questions not to ask. It means knowing which games not to play. It means recognizing that the most important decisions in life aren't about what you do, they're about what you refuse to do. I've made this a religion in my life. Avoid standard ways of failing. You teach me the wrong way to play poker, and I will avoid it. You show me where businesses go bankrupt, and I will structure my life to avoid those patterns. Warren and I haven't succeeded because we're geniuses who pick winners. We've succeeded because we're pretty good at avoiding losers. And that's the first thing I wish I'd understood earlier. It's not about being the smartest person in the room. It's about being rational when everyone else has lost their minds. I'll tell you something that sounds boring, but has made me more money than any brilliant insight. Patience. The big money isn't in the buying or the selling, it's in the waiting. And waiting is the hardest thing in the world to do when you're young, when you're ambitious, when everyone around you is making moves, and you feel like you're standing still. I remember being in my 30s, 40s, even watching opportunities I'd passed on turn into gold for other people. It ate at me. I'd think, Charlie, you idiot, you missed it again. But you know what I learned? For every one I missed that succeeded, there were 10 that blew up. I just didn't hear about those because nobody brags about their failures. Warren and I have a saying, the big money is made in the ass sitting. Crude, I know, but it's true. We've made most of our fortune by finding something good and then doing absolutely nothing for decades. Berkshire Hathaway, we've owned some of those stocks for 50 years. not because we're loyal or sentimental, but because we found businesses so good that selling them would be stupid. But here's what nobody tells you about patience. It compounds, just like interest, just like knowledge. The longer you practice patience, the easier it gets, and the more it pays off. It's like a muscle. At first, waiting feels like torture. But after a few decades of watching impatient people blow themselves up, patience becomes second nature. If I could go back and tell my 25-year-old self one thing, it would be this. Whatever you think your timeline is, triple it. Want to be rich by 30? Plan for 45. Want to master your craft in 5 years? Give yourself 15. Because compounding takes time. Real compounding, the kind that changes your life, doesn't happen in months or even years. It happens in decades. And here's the cruel irony. The younger you are, the more time you have, but the less patience you have. By the time you learn patience, you're running out of time. So learn it now. Sit on your hands. Do nothing. Let time work for you instead of against you. Let me tell you about money. Not investing, we'll get to that, but money itself, because most people have it completely backwards. They think money is about earning more. It's not. It's about needing less. I've lived in the same house for 70 years, not because I'm cheap, though I am, but because I don't need a bigger house. I drive a regular car, I wear regular clothes, and people look at me like I'm crazy. Charlie, you're a billionaire, why don't you live like one? And my answer is always the same. Why would I? What would I gain? A bigger house means more maintenance, more staff, more complications. A yacht means I'm stuck dealing with yacht problems. A private island means I'm isolated from the world. None of that sounds appealing to me. None of it would make me happier. Here's what I've learned about money over 99 years. Past a certain point, more money doesn't buy you more happiness. It buys you more problems, more decisions, more people wanting things from you, more complexity. The real secret to money is figuring out how much is enough. And for most people, enough is a lot less than they think. Once you have enough to be comfortable, to be secure, to not worry about the basics, additional money is just a way of keeping score. And keeping score is exhausting. I watched my friend get rich, really rich, in the tech boom, made hundreds of millions. And you know what happened? He spent the next decade worrying about losing it. Worried about taxes, about investments, about people suing him, about his kids becoming spoiled. He was miserable. The money didn't free him. It imprisoned him. So here's what I wish I'd known earlier. Figure out what enough looks like for you, and then stop. Don't keep chasing more just because you can. Don't let your lifestyle inflate just because your bank account does. Because the moment your expenses rise to meet your income, you're back where you started, on a treadmill running faster and faster just to stay in place. Live below your means, not at your means. Below them. Give yourself breathing room. Because that breathing room, that gap between what you earn and what you spend, that's where freedom lives. That's where patience lives. That's where you make good decisions instead of desperate ones. I've been asked many times, Charlie, what's the secret to staying sharp at your age? And the answer is embarrassingly simple. I never stopped learning. Warren and I, we're learning machines. We read constantly, we think constantly, we challenge our own beliefs constantly. And that's not because we're intellectually curious, though we are, but because the world keeps changing. And if you stop learning, you become obsolete. I'll tell you something that sounds arrogant, but is just factual. The reason Warren and I have stayed relevant for so long is that we keep getting better. Not smarter. Better. We learn from our mistakes. We learn from other people's mistakes. We update our thinking when we're wrong. And most importantly, we don't cling to ideas just because we've always believed them. You know what kills more businesses and more investors than anything else? Obsolete thinking. people who made money one way and assume that way will work forever. It won't. The world changes, technology changes, consumer behavior changes. What worked in 1980 doesn't work in 2020, and what works today won't work in 2050. So here's what I wish I'd known at your age. Your education doesn't end when you graduate. It doesn't end when you get your first job or your first promotion. It never ends. Every single day you should go to bed slightly smarter than when you woke up. Read widely. Study failure, especially your own. Challenge your assumptions. Surround yourself with people smarter than you and listen to them. And here's the key: learn across disciplines. Don't just study your field. Study psychology, study physics, study history, study biology, because the big insights don't come from going deeper into your narrow specialty. They come from connecting ideas from different fields. That's where the magic happens. I call it a lattice work of mental models. It's a fancy way of saying understand how the world really works, not just your little corner of it. Because when you understand principles, real fundamental principles that cross disciplines, you can solve problems that others can't even see. And the beautiful thing about learning, it compounds just like money. What you learn today builds on what you learned yesterday. And in 20 years, you'll have this vast reservoir of wisdom that makes decision-making almost intuitive. You'll see patterns other people miss. You'll avoid traps other people fall into. Not because you're smarter, but because you've been paying attention longer. I'm 99 years old, and I've made every mistake in the book. I've lost money I shouldn't have lost. I've trusted people I shouldn't have trusted. I've wasted time on ventures that went nowhere. I've been arrogant, stubborn, and wrong more times than I can count. And you know what? Those mistakes were the best education I ever got. Here's what young people don't understand about mistakes. They're not setbacks. They're tuition. Every mistake you make, if you learn from it, is an investment in your future judgment. The goal isn't to avoid all mistakes. That's impossible. The goal is to make mistakes you can afford to make and then never make them again. Warren and I talk about this all the time. The mistakes that hurt us weren't the times we lost money on an investment. Those sting, but you recover. The mistakes that really cost us were the opportunities we missed, the businesses we should have bought and didn't. Those mistakes cost us billions, plural with a B. But here's the thing about mistakes of omission versus mistakes of commission. You can learn from both. When we passed on Walmart in the early days, that taught us something about recognizing exceptional businesses. When we bought See's Candies, which everyone thought was overpriced, that taught us that quality businesses are worth paying up for. Both lessons were expensive. Both were invaluable. So here's what I wish I'd known earlier. Don't hide from your mistakes. Study them, own them, figure out exactly where you went wrong and why. Because if you can do that, if you can look at your failures honestly, you'll make fewer and fewer mistakes over time. And here's the secret that nobody tells you. Most people don't learn from mistakes because their ego gets in the way. They rationalize, they blame others, they pretend it wasn't really a mistake. Don't do that. Kill your ego before it kills your progress. Say, I was wrong. Here's why. Here's what I'll do differently next time. And then actually do it differently. Warren and I have this practice. When we make a bad investment, we do a post-mortem. What did we miss? What did we misunderstand? What red flags did we ignore? And we write it down, because if you don't write it down, you'll forget. And if you forget, you'll make the same mistake again. Collect your mistakes like trophies. Review them regularly. And be grateful for them, because they're making you better. I've been married to the same woman for decades. I've kept the same friends for 50 years. And I can tell you without hesitation, Those relationships are worth more than every dollar I've ever made. Money comes and goes, health comes and goes, but good relationships, if you nurture them, they last. And at 99, I can tell you that the quality of your life is determined by the quality of your relationships. Nothing else comes close. Here's what I wish I'd known at your age. The people you choose to spend your time with are the most important decisions you'll ever make. More important than your career, more important than where you live or what you buy, because you become like the people you surround yourself with. It's not a metaphor, it's a fact. If you surround yourself with cynical people, you'll become cynical. If you surround yourself with people who make excuses, you'll make excuses. If you surround yourself with people who are always chasing the next shiny object, you'll never be satisfied. You absorb the attitudes and behaviors of your circle, whether you realize it or not. So choose carefully. Warren and I have a simple rule. We only work with people we respect and admire. If we wouldn't want to have dinner with someone, we won't do business with them, no matter how good the deal looks. Because life's too short to spend time with people you don't enjoy. And here's something else. Invest in your relationships the same way you'd invest in a business. You can't ignore them for years and expect them to thrive. You have to show up. You have to be present. You have to give before you take. I see young people today who are so focused on their careers that they let friendships wither. They skip the birthday parties. They don't return calls. They're always too busy. And then 20 years later, they look up and realize they're lonely. They're successful, sure, but they're lonely. And let me tell you, success without people to share it with is hollow. Here's my advice. Treat your relationships like your most important investment, because they are. Be loyal. Be generous with your time. Show up for people when they need you, and don't keep score. The moment you start keeping score in a relationship, I did this for them, what have they done for me? It's already over. At 99, I can't remember most of my investment returns, but I remember every dinner with friends, every conversation with Warren, every moment with my family. That's what lasts. That's what matters. I've worked my entire adult life. I'm 99 years old, and I still go to the office. Not because I need the money, I don't know, but because I genuinely enjoy what I do. And that's the secret that nobody tells young people about work. If you pick the right work, it doesn't feel like work. But here's the problem. Most people pick their career based on the wrong criteria. They chase prestige or money or what their parents want, and then they spend 40 years doing something they tolerate at best and hate at worst. What a waste. I have 3 rules for choosing work, and I wish someone had told me these when I was 25. First, don't sell anything you wouldn't buy yourself. I've never sold a product I didn't believe in, never recommended an investment I wouldn't make myself, never advocated for something I thought was wrong. Because once you cross that line, once you start compromising your integrity for a paycheck, you're finished. Not financially, maybe, but morally, and that's worse. Second, don't work for anyone you don't respect and admire. Life's too short to spend it with people who don't share your values. I've turned down lucrative opportunities because I didn't like the people involved, and every single time I was glad I did. Because working with people you don't respect is soul-crushing. It doesn't matter how good the opportunity looks on paper. Third, work only with people you enjoy. Warren and I have been partners for decades because we genuinely like each other. We think the same way. We laugh at the same things. We respect each other's judgment. And that makes hard decisions easier, tough times bearable, and success more enjoyable. If you can check all 3 of those boxes, integrity, respect, enjoyment, you'll never dread Monday morning. You'll have found work that feels like play. And that's when you do your best work, when you're not grinding through it, but genuinely engaged. Here's what I also learned. Your reputation is built slowly and destroyed quickly. It takes decades to build trust and one bad decision to lose it. So guard your reputation like it's the most valuable asset you have, because it is. In the long run, your reputation determines who wants to work with you, who trusts you, who gives you opportunities. Money can rebuild. Reputation, much harder. And one more thing, don't chase titles or promotions for their own sake. Chase competence. Get so good at what you do that opportunities chase you. Because competence is rare, and the world pays a premium for people who are truly excellent at something useful. Here's a dirty little secret about investing, about business, about life. The simple approach usually works better than the complicated one. But smart people hate simple. They think simple means simplistic. So they add complexity to feel clever. And complexity is where things break. I've watched this play out thousands of times. Someone has a straightforward business model that works. Then they get ambitious. They add products, they enter new markets, they leverage up. They hire consultants who convince them they need sophisticated strategies, and before you know it, the whole thing collapses under its own weight. Warren and I keep it simple. We buy businesses we understand, run by people we trust at prices that make sense. That's it. No complex derivatives, no leverage, no financial engineering, just simple, boring businesses that make money year after year. And people look at us like we're dinosaurs. Charlie, don't you know about modern portfolio theory? Don't you know about hedging strategies? Sure, I know about them. I also know they don't work for us because complexity introduces more points of failure, more things that can go wrong, more opportunities for small mistakes to compound into big disasters. Here's what I wish I'd known earlier. There's no prize for difficulty. You don't get extra points for making things complicated. In fact, you get penalized. Because complex systems are fragile. They require constant monitoring, constant adjustment, and eventually something breaks that you didn't anticipate. Simple systems are robust. They're easier to understand, easier to manage, easier to fix when something goes wrong. And in the long run, robust beats clever every single time. So when you're faced with a decision and you have a simple option versus a complex one, default to simple. Don't add complexity unless it genuinely adds value, and be very skeptical of anyone who tries to make simple things sound complicated. Usually they're either confused or trying to confuse you. I've probably said no to more opportunities than I've said yes to. And that's not because I'm risk-averse or pessimistic. It's because most opportunities are bad opportunities disguised as good ones. Here's what young people don't understand. Every time you say yes to something, you're saying no to everything else you could be doing with that time and money. So the question isn't, is this a good opportunity? The question is this the best possible use of my limited resources? And most of the time, the answer is no. Warren and I have missed hundreds of chances to make money, maybe thousands, and every single time we passed on something that later succeeded, people would ask, Charlie, don't you regret not investing in that? And my answer is always the same, no. Because we were also passing on 1,000 other things that failed. We just don't hear about those. The art of investing and the art of living is knowing what to ignore. There's an infinite number of things you could do, could invest in, could spend time on. Your job isn't to do everything. It's to do the few things that really matter and ignore everything else. I've made more money by sitting on my hands than by taking action. I've preserved more wealth by not losing it than by making brilliant investments. And that's because inaction is underrated. Doing nothing is a viable strategy. Sometimes it's the best strategy, but doing nothing is hard. It feels passive. It feels like you're missing out. So people do things just to feel like they're doing something. They trade stocks, they start projects, they chase trends. And most of the time they'd be better off doing nothing. Here's what I wish I'd known at your age. Saying no is a skill. Practice it. Get comfortable with it. Because the more successful you become, the more opportunities you'll have, and most of them will be distractions. Your ability to say no, to stay focused on what truly matters, will determine how far you go. And don't feel bad about saying no. You don't owe anyone an explanation. No is a complete sentence. Use it liberally. I'm 99 years old and I'm still here, not because I have great genes, though I might, but because I've taken care of myself. Not obsessively, not to the point where it interferes with living, but consistently. Here's what I wish I'd known at your age. Your health is the only asset you can't replace. You can make more money, you can rebuild your career, you can start over in a new city, but you only get one body, one brain, and if you wreck them, you're done. I see young people today working themselves into the ground, not sleeping, eating garbage, never exercising, living on caffeine and stress, and they think they're invincible. They think they'll fix it later, but later never comes, or by the time it does, the damage is done. You don't get to be old and healthy by accident. You get there by making small, boring decisions every single day. You eat reasonably, you move your body, you get enough sleep, you manage your stress. Nothing glamorous, nothing complicated, just consistency. And here's the thing, health compounds too. The good habits you build now will pay dividends for decades. And the bad habits, they'll cost you in ways you can't imagine yet. I'm not saying you need to be a monk. I'm not saying you can't enjoy life. But I am saying you need to respect the fact that your body has limits. Push too hard for too long and something breaks. And unlike money, you can't just earn more health. So take care of yourself. Not because you're vain or obsessed with longevity, but because you want to be functional and sharp for as long as possible. Because what good is wealth if you're too sick to enjoy it? What good is success if you're miserable? At 99, I'm grateful every day that I can still think clearly, still walk, still work. That's the real wealth. That's the real success. And it started with decisions I made 50, 60, 70 years ago. People ask me if I have regrets. Of course I do. I'm 99 years old. I have plenty. But here's what I've learned about regrets. They're not evenly distributed. Most of my regrets aren't about things I did. They're about things I didn't do. Opportunities I was too cautious to take. Relationships I let slip away. Risks I should have taken, but didn't. There's a business Warren and I passed on in the early days. We thought it was too expensive. It was Walmart. If we'd bought it, we'd have made an extra $10 billion, maybe more. And that haunts me. Not because I need the money. I don't. But because I hate being wrong. But you know what? I don't regret a single friend I've kept. I don't regret a single book I've read. 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 I don't regret staying married or staying curious or staying humble. Those weren't mistakes. Those were the best decisions I ever made. Here's what I wish I'd known at your age. You'll regret the things you don't do more than the things you do. Fear keeps us from trying things, from taking risks, from putting ourselves out there. And that fear costs us, not immediately, but over decades. You realize all the experiences you missed, all the people you didn't connect with, all the adventures you didn't take. So take the risk, ask the question, make the move. And if it doesn't work out, at least you'll know. At least you won't spend the rest of your life wondering, what if? I'm 99 years old, and I've had a good run. Better than I deserved, honestly. I've made money, sure, but more importantly, I've had great friends, good health, work I enjoyed, and a life that felt meaningful. And none of that came from being a genius. It came from following a few simple principles and sticking with them, even when they weren't fashionable. Here's what I hope you take from this. Be patient. Learn constantly. Admit your mistakes. Live below your means. Choose your people carefully. Do work that matters. Keep it simple. Say no often. Take care of your health And don't wait to live the life you want, because time is the only thing you can't get more of. And at your age, you still have plenty of it. Don't waste it. Don't spend it on things that don't matter. Don't chase empty achievements or hollow success. Figure out what enough looks like for you, and then build a life around that. Not more, not less, just enough. And remember, the goal isn't to die rich. The goal is to live well, to go to bed each night knowing you spent your day on things that mattered, to look back at 80 or 90 or 99 and think, yeah, I did it right. I'm not perfect. I've made plenty of mistakes, but I've also lived by principles that served me well. And if sharing them saves even one person from making the same mistakes I made, then this was worth it. So go, be patient, be rational, be kind, and build something that lasts. That's what I wish I'd known at your age.